Hello and welcome to this edition of the Met's Virtual Drop-in Drawing. In this program, we bring the Met to you with a series of art-making exercises based on works from our collection designed to challenge and grow your creative skills. My name is Padma Rajendran and I'm a teaching artist at the Met, and in my own studio work, I often work with fabric, printmaking, drawing, painting, and collage. Today, we'll be creating a mandala drawing with our surroundings in mind. You can also choose to add color in the later stages of the mandala's creation. The mandala by nature establishes sacred space, and with this project, perhaps a re-establishment of the home space is achieved. Despite our home space being sites of many functions during this pandemic, it continues to be a space where we still need to revive and achieve rest. We will follow the visual cues of this Chinese silk tapestry from the 14th century cosmological mandala with Mount Meru. Mandalas can contain geometric and organic shapes and forms, as well as symbols that carry meaning for the individual. This woven silk tapestry is 33 by 33 inches, so slightly smaller than 3 feet on all sides, and it is roughly the same size as the front of an oven. Looking at this particular artwork, I can see that there is an outer square with a red border and a wide circle in the interior. The square has a floral border with a blue background, with 4 faces in each corner. Around this interior circle is a band of small triangular peaks against a black band of color to differentiate the circle from the blue background of floral bases and pattern of lotus flower shapes and other symbols linked to Buddhism. Within the circle are a series of squares outlining one another in light gray blue, outlined with red threads. At the very center is a blue hourglass shape with triangular tiers moving upward. And there's also an oval disc shape that has a flower at the very top. This blue hourglass shape symbolizes Mount Meru. Surrounding Mount Meru on each of the 4 sides are classical mountain representations of Chinese landscape in green and blue, which shift orientation depending if they are on the side or at the very bottom, appearing upside down. The 4 sides of Mount Meru indicate cardinal direction: north, south, east, and west. All around this weaving are fine blue and red lines of interlocking patterns indicating waves or land. According to Buddhist and Jain cosmology, Mount Meru was considered the center of the universe. Take a moment to think about the center of your universe right now. For me, it is the reminders of natural beauty and feelings of comfort and warmth of the home that come from decorative patterns. We will create our own visual for the center of our universe with the structure of Mount Meru in mind. Instead of classical Chinese landscapes that surround the center, perhaps these circles and shapes function as windows to your surroundings. You can even add elements of your interior world or even the landscape that surrounds you. You can also consider describing the 4 sides as shifting seasons. You can create a structure that is perhaps looser than contemporary versions of mandalas, but one that is more connected to your personal world building and universe. Now let's gather our materials. So gathering our materials, we will need some paper. You'll also need a pencil, an eraser, also a straight edge, preferably a ruler. And if you have colored pencils, grab some of those, or any crayons or pastels, or even markers would be great. We're going to first start with our pencil, eraser, and ruler. So we'll put the color aside and get started. So my paper is 9 by 12 inches, and I'm starting out with a 9 by 9 square. I've drawn just a little 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch square within this larger square, and I wanted that to be my border. But once you've drawn your square, it can be any size. It's up to you. We want to find our center point. So using my ruler, I'm going to find the center point. And since my square is 9 inches, I know that need to mark at 4.5 inches, and then switching the orientation just to line up. And we're going to be making a series of dots based off of this center point. So I'm going to erase the dot that I put as a guide, and I have my center point identified. So to create our series of dots, and this will guide our larger interior circle, I am going to make a dot, or rather a few dots, based off of the center point. So first, going horizontally, I've lined up one of the inch markings to the center line, and the center dot, and I'm just going to measure an inch and mark an inch off that center point, and then make another dot for 2 inches off of that center point, and then 3 inches as well. You can go to a farther corner, but I'm just doing 3 inches off of the center point. I'm going to do the same and flip my paper around to get a vertical. And if you don't have a ruler and are just using, let's say, the side of a book or even a small box, just make a guesstimate. This is your mandala, your creation, describing your universe. So it's okay if it is not exact. I do recommend using a sharpened pencil if you can. And I'm also not pressing incredibly hard because I might need to erase some of these dots later on. Okay, so I've added my last dot. And now I'm ready to follow and connect the dots in this outer circle area. And you might want to just do a light sketch. And it's okay if it's not entirely perfect. But it's just a rough guide. And if you need your eraser to erase any little lines that might have gone astray, please feel free to do that along the way. Okay, so now I'm going to create the structure around the center point. I'll grab my straight edge one more time, and I'm going to channel some of the structure of Mount Meru in mind and draw a square around my center point, and also have a series of squares. If you'd like to be very exact, please feel free. I'm just going off of some of the dots that I've drawn already as a guide. So any leftover dots or longer edges of the line, feel free to erase. Okay, and now we're going to start thinking about what's at the center. If you wanted to get started of what might be in the corners, you can, but we're just going to be using this as a rough guide before we start working with color. So at the center, I am going to follow some of the lines that were established by the cosmological mandala with Mount Meru, but I am going to make a few differences. So I just want to, perhaps in the center, split this square. And again, if you don't have a straight edge or ruler or want to move away from it, feel free to do a freehand drawing. Okay. And I'm going to also see maybe center line. So I wanted to think about the cardinal ideas, north, south, east, and west, and also thinking about my home. This top part of the triangle to me represents the roof line, and also as the day and time passes, the shadow that might be cast. So I wanted just a quick symbol for this idea of home for me personally. And then I also wanted to add some of the elements that I admire with the cosmological mandala with Mount Meru. So instead of the oval disc shape that I will add at the top, I'm thinking about making a half circle in this area. Maybe that can be representative of sun. And again, this is just the sketch part. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll be outlining later in a darker color. And I did love that idea of the flower. And it's just a rough guide. Okay. And then I also want to think about what shapes to add surrounding my center of the universe. And you could follow the mandala drawing by changing the shapes, or if you wanted to follow the shapes that are outlined in the weaving, you can. And especially since the center shape is a little bigger than the shapes that are outlined or outerlying. I'm thinking about having two different shapes. I get my ruler back out for this. perhaps on the sides. Similar shape to the center. And as you plan and as you sketch, I think changing your mind or little mistakes are very normal. So feel free to modify, change, alter what you would like to surround a center. And mandalas are traditionally known for being symmetrical, but I also think that my center of universe, my universe is not exactly symmetrical or 100% balanced, even if I am trying to achieve balance. And this can be a mandala of intention or a mandala that acknowledges reality, at least for me. Now, while you're deciding what to put in the center, or if you've already placed something in the center, you can choose to add more detail, or again, decide what you would like surrounding within these shapes. If you wanted to do a depiction of your interior world or your surroundings outside your window, you're welcome to do that. Or just think about symbols that are important to you. So as you continue, we will add some elements into our mandala. Consider describing, the four sides shifting seasons, or whatever you see as your north, south, east, and west. Now is also a good time, if you'd like, to add in a decorative detail or symbol to the four corners outside the circle. Once you've completed your drawn details, we can start work with color, or if you choose to add in fine line patterns to fill the space with pencil or pen and fill in with color later. I'm going to add in some more symbols. All right, so I'm going to add in a few more shapes on the outside. I'm open to drawing them by hand, freehand. Once you feel like you are ready to shift to color or even outline, you can do that. So I'm going to grab a marker and spend some time outlining my elements in my mandala. And feel free to add in any patterns. I mentioned that my center of the universe is my home space and a connection to nature. I find comfort in some of the domestic patterns that I see around me, and also taking comfort in representations of nature. And because in my surroundings, I also see water and mountains, I am going to think about how to draw those ideas into pattern. So now I can really think about creating color and pattern with my lines. And I'm going to use a few materials. You can use some pastel. And it doesn't bother me too much if I go out of the line, but you can adopt any philosophy you want in terms of the coloring. I'm going to continue to color in, but also contemplate any additional patterns, images, symbols from my surroundings, mostly from the interior now. And perhaps there's even imagery of a place that you're feeling connected to, but you're not physically there. Feel free to add that in as well. I'm going to add in some triangular peaks that I admired from the cosmological mandala with Mount Meru, but have it occupy the interior of my circle. And again, this mandala can represent a multitude of realities. This can be a representation of your spiritual or physical universe and can reaffirm or remind you of what is at the center. So I've started adding some color. I've outlined all of my shapes, added a few more details, and coloring in, adding pattern. And while I was working with color, I've added in some line patterns, some that I see in my personal world. I live near water and mountains, and as I connect to the imagery of wave lines to fill the surrounding space. So continue to add in details, patterns, symbols, and imagery from your surroundings, interior or exterior, and perhaps even a place you're feeling connected to, but not physically there. This mandala can represent a multitude of realities. Again, this can be a representation of your spiritual or physical universe and can reaffirm or remind what is at your center. Thank you so much for joining this drop-in drawing. I hope you've enjoyed this process. I know I have. Please share your drawing with us on social media and tag it with #MatSketch.